get to know more about God. Alright, so we're going to be talking about how Christ has been. We already discussed before about how Christ has been building his church by placing a light in the middle of darkness. And I'm going to be talking about how Christ has been how Christ deals with abuse in the family system. So we already talked about when Christ came to the world, he came to represent God, and he represented God in his truest nature. He also brought for us the kingdom of God, which now gives us access to being able to communicate directly with God when we have a relationship with Christ and we have an intimacy with God. Now the thing is, yes, there are family systems and there are institutions that are already created in this under this kingdom. But however, the devil still has his own system in place. Even though Christ came and his kingdom was brought here, the kingdom of devil is still it's still operating in our day to day, and he's still using the family system to procreate and to increase his own kingdom for his own evil agendas in the world. And what he really tries to do is he tries to lure people from this side to come over to this side. And what Christ does is it's very amazing how Christ has been building his church. Remember I said that the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they kind of neglected this population in the church systems, and they weren't allowed to commune or even be a part of the church because they just didn't fit in. These were the lost sheep of Israel, and for this population, Christ said he was going to build his church in 3 days after his death. And the way he's been building his church is by placing a light in the middle of darkness. So that light in the middle of darkness, we have perspective of those two words, and the perspective will be able to that of being in the dark, being positioned in the dark and having their heads in the clouds, and that perspective will be able to help to build the church, so those that are over on this side in the kingdom of darkness can cross over onto the kingdom of God. And it's really amazing because when Christ puts that an individual, or God plants a seed, which are also known as the son kingdom, so the impact, light, sons of the kingdom, and the church of Christ, they're all the same, it means the same thing. When Christ places an impact right here in the narcissist family system, um Christ would this placement is just really, it's temporary, for the work that just so Christ, just so the light over here can grow in this environment and understand how the people in this world actually thinks and how they act, and what they're really about. Now, when Christ wants to build his church, it pulls out this light in the middle of darkness. Pulls out the light in the middle of darkness, so it can put it, and it takes them into these marvelous lights to do work in God's kingdom. In God's kingdom. Now the thing is, just because Christ pulls them out doesn't mean that they leave or they discard their family system. There's still a light in the middle of darkness. They're still positioned as light in the middle of darkness. But for them to be able to be prepared to do God's work, they will have to go through a wilderness experience, the same thing that Christ had to go through. That he went to the wilderness. He was tempted into the wilderness by the devil to be tempted. He was led into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil, and he was there for 40 days and 40 nights. And he got lured. The devil lured him with his kingdom, with his money, with fame, and all that, and he rejected all those things. And after that, he went back into the world, and then he started his ministry, and he started his good works that he came to the world to do. But then before that, he had to leave. He had to have left his family system. He had left his mother Mary. He had left his father Joseph for that to even happen, for that to take place. He wasn't linked to any of his family, any of his parents. As a matter of fact, there was a point where his disciples came to him, and they asked him, and they asked him that they told him, oh, they told him, hey, Jesus, your mother and your brothers are outside looking for you. Someone told him, look, your mother and your brothers are in Matthew chapter 12, verse 47. It says, someone told him, look, your mother and your brothers are standing outside wanting to speak to you. But Jesus replied to them, and he said, who is my mother and who are my brothers? And he stretched out his hand and it towards his disciples, and he said, here are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven, that person is my brother and sister and mother. So it was referring to his disciples as his own family, because after he gets separated from this family system, he considered his disciples more of family than his and the member of his church than his Nazareth family systems. But it wasn't like he had any hatred towards the Nazareth family system. He didn't have any hatred towards them. Um, but for the purpose of his ministry, he was able to relate with those ones that were able to do the Father's will, because the ones in the Nazareth system they have a little bit of a different way of thinking or different way of seeing things. Now, when Christ in for the I'm going to be focusing basically on Matthew chapter 10 verse 32, which says the acknowledgement of Christ. So we already discussed that yes, this family system is created initially, you know, by the devil before God introduced his kingdom and introduced his own family system that is authorized by love, that understands what love is about. And I already said that because the devil is the author of abuse, this family system only all what they've known over their lives are being abused over abuse. Generations after generations has been abused over abuse. And if you've been abused over abuse, poverty over poverty, obesity over obesity, ignorance over ignorance, and it continues like that. It continued like that. If they weren't Christians and their grandparents were Christians, okay, the parents also were not Christians and they didn't go to church, they don't have any relationship with God, and it would continue like that. It would continue like that. So these things are generational, from one generation to another. It continues to pass on, and that's how the devil has been increasing his own kingdom. And because of the law of Moses right here in the church system, all of those people are rejected. They're rejected. They can't be a part of the church system because they're like obvious sinners. Oh, your sin is obvious, Like if you're a homosexual in our day today in 21st century, if you're a homosexual, you're practically just you're a sinner, and your sin is obvious even if you're already out of the closet. Now I'm straight, and I'm not going to talk about this topic yet, but I do want to say something. If you're a Christian and you're a homosexual and you're going through a lot of shame in the church system, or you're experiencing confusion, you don't know whether or not God likes you or God hates you, what I will tell you is you get into a personal relationship with God, pursue God, get into a personal relationship with God. He wants to have a relationship with you. And you know what? Just ask him for clarity if that's all you really want. Because I don't think it's anything but clarity. For you to just have clarity over that issue of not being confused of who you are. Go to God. He wants to have a relationship with you. He loves you through Jesus Christ. Yes, you're going to have to stop some type of habits. You're going to have to probably stop having sex for a little while, just so you can get that clarity from God. Don't stop until you get that answer from God. That's all I'm going to say to you. If you're in this position and you are confused about who you are. Yeah, as I was saying, so the family system has been abused over abuse, and Christ definitely purposely placed his church here for a whole lot of reasons. Like, he wants to break this abusive system that the devil has been putting together. He wants to break this abusive system. So when a light is placed in the middle of darkness, and they're Christ Church, now if they know their identity, they may actually function as lights in the middle of darkness and understand their role that they are supposed to be playing as influencers in that world, as influencers to influence these ones so they can be won over to Christ. But if they're lights in the middle of darkness and they don't understand who they are, they don't understand who they are, but they have like a ministry calling or something like that, Christ will have to pull them out. Especially, let's say they don't even go to church, they don't have a relationship with God. Christ will have to pull them out and take them through that wilderness experience. And this wilderness experience is going to take a whole lot out of this individual, because having been in this environment so much, they start to actually behave like every one of this. They're brokenhearted. They may be even lack knowledge. They may be poor in spirit, and they may be even demon possessed because they are placed in this environment. And a lot of things happen in this environment. And Christ will have to take them to this wilderness experience, and He will have to educate them. He will have to show them and present their identities to them. Identities, plan, and purpose. And then they will be returned back to this place to function as a light in the middle of darkness. But for that to happen, there has to be a separation. Especially if there's abuse going on in the family system. If there's abuse going on in the family system, there has to be a separation. And there's a proof in Matthew chapter 10 that in the case of abuse, God doesn't divorce. God doesn't say, okay, you have to divorce, even if it's in the case of like incest or sexual or physical violence. I mean, it's in physical violence, domestic violence, where the husband is beating the wife, or the wife is beating the husband, or if it's like that, if it's physical like that, if it's definitely invading someone else's life, and it's life threatening. The way God handles this type of situation is that He separates the abuser from the abused. And sometimes it separates by pulling out His own church. He pulls out His church from this environment. In Matthew chapter 10 verse 32, I'm going to read it out loud. And this is our study for today. Acknowledging Christ. 32 says, "Therefore, everyone who will acknowledge me before men, I will also acknowledge him before my Father in heaven. But whoever denies me before men, I will also deny him before my Father in heaven. Don't assume that I came to bring peace on the earth. I did not come to bring peace but a sword, for I came to turn." Okay, I'm just going to stop right there. Don't assume that I came to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace but a sword. Now you think all this while that we've been trying to wait for God for us to get reconnected back to God, the Israelites were obviously going through a whole lot of oppression and a whole lot of affliction by the Pharisees and the priests that were really catering to them, and they were being misinformed of about who God is. And all this while in the world, we've been waiting for God to reveal Himself and for God to just change our world. And He sent His Son to present us His kingdom, and then His Son is right here telling us He didn't come to bring peace. What? Yeah, He said He didn't come to bring peace; that He came to bring a sword. Like, why would He do that? Why would there be a need for a sword? A sword, what a sword does is a sword. So let me just draw a sword right here. The sword is just like a knife. Just think about a knife. In the kitchen, when you're in the kitchen, you're cooking. Let's say you cook. We cut onions with knives. We cut butter with knife. It divides. That's what it does. A knife or a sword divides the sharp object that is meant to divide. That's what it does. And what he was really trying to say is he didn't come to bring peace. Oh, not to this family system. He did not come to bring peace to the family system that is organized by the devil. He came to bring a sword to divide this family system. To divide the family system that has not acknowledged him, that didn't start with him, that is not a center of that relationship. And it's crazy because if two people get married, let's say two, and we already said that this narcissist family system is a broken system. It's already broken right from the start. So if two broken people get married, this person is hurt and that person is hurt. They're broken and broken. They will eventually give birth to other broken people, and it's just gonna be a lot of brokenness everywhere. And the more broken they are, the more they will escalate to being more abusive in the devil's abusive realm. It escalates from being abusive to being narcissistic, from to being sociopath, to being psychopath, to having all those behaviors. And I'm not trying to say it in a negative way, but that's what happens. There's an escalation. The more abuse you face in this kingdom, the more the more the more we lose our senses, the more we lose our senses in this kingdom. And Christ understands that the more that is the ones that he placed here as his church remains in this kingdom, the less sane they will be, being in this realm. So what he's saying is, okay, I'm going to place my church here, so my church can grow around this environment, but then I'm going to also divide this environment. I'm also going to divide this environment. If it gets too hot, if it gets too abusive, I am going to divide this environment. And it's not something that they can help, because a lot of times the devil would usually throw abuse and upon abuse and upon abuse, just for the fact that there's a light in the middle of this darkness, just for the fact that he knows that Jesus Christ has placed his church in the middle of this darkness. And he continues to introduce a lot of abuse into the family system. And he goes ahead to say in chapter 35, "For I came to turn a man against his family, a father. I came to turn a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a man's enemies will be the members of his household." And the truth is, he's here. He brought a knife, he brought a sword to divide to divide the family system, to turn people against each other. See, naturally, one of the narcissist traits, is that they are not able to bond with people. They're not able to bond with people. They're not able to have like close relationship with people. No intimacy in their relationships. And the reason that it's that way is because they haven't experienced relationships in their own life as well. Like their parents didn't know what intimacy is. Their parents never bonded. Yes, they're married, but they're probably just married for just procreating, for just giving birth to children. They just want to settle down and have children. It's not because they actually love or they want to feel more connected emotionally to the person that they're married to. So and if you ask them, they will probably tell you, oh, your grandparents were like that too. Your grandparents, it's just there's no bonding with the relationships. There's no intimacy with the relationships that they have. So it's very natural for 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 the light in the middle of the darkness that has an understanding of what love is. When they have a relationship with God, the light in this, or the empath in this environment, will continue and constantly expect love from their narcissist parents, or they will expect some type of bond or intimacy from the narcissist parent, and they won't be able to receive that love or that bonding or whatever it is that they're looking for. And it's very natural that the empath, which is the light, would constantly seek for this love. And a lot of times, the empath or the light will go out of the family system looking for this love in all the wrong places, in relationship that doesn't honor God. And they will fall into other narcissist relationships, because the only people that the empath in this environment is familiar with, her narcissists, they're all a lot of them are in the dark. So that's the word. So when we keep going from one man to another man, another woman, hoping that okay, maybe this one will be different, you realize that they're all the same. Then it's very easy for even the empath in this situation to make that conclusion that okay, I guess this is how the world is. I guess this is how men are all dogs, or women are all, sex slaves, or whatever it is that some men call women these days. It's very easy to make that conclusion, and that's why Christ is like, no, no. Uh, if this light or this empath is supposed to be my church, they're not supposed to have that type of perspective. They're not supposed to have that type of idea of of what love is. So it will have to separate the family system, so that the empath can experience God's love when they go through this experience, so that the empath can experience God, and the love that God has for the empath, even though they're supposed to be in this environment. And that's why Jesus Christ said that when the abuse gets too much, when it gets too much in that environment, there's going to have to be a separation. A man is if a man will have if a man continues to fight his father because they don't have that bond, they don't have that intimacy, they're different, you know, and there's constant fight, there's constant tension, and we have to remember that behind above the narcissist is another person, the devil, that is using the narcissist to control the family, to control the children in the family setting. So so it is very natural when Christ is not a part of that relationship, that there will be a separation, even when it's a daughter-in-law against a mother-in-law. There will be some type of temporary separation. Now the amazing news about this is it's not for, people expect that okay, when there's abuse in the relationship, especially in the case of domestic violence, it's very easy for the abused or the victim to 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 vote for a divorce. Say, you know what, I don't want you as my husband anymore. I want to divorce you. I want to divorce you. And another reason is some people even say, oh, you know what, God hates divorce. And because God hates divorce, you have to remain with the person that is domestically abusing you. A lot of times this relationship, it leads to death, to a point where the abuse actually die from such relationships. And that's what Christ is trying to prevent. That he doesn't like the idea of people having to die in the family system that they don't have control over, because the devil is right above above them, controlling them to abuse themselves. So Jesus Christ comes into the picture and says, you know what, you didn't start this relationship with me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to separate you both, and I'll pull you apart. So if this is the abuse, that's the abuse, and that's the abuser. There's going to be a separation. It's going to be temporary. It's going to be temporary, so that this person that is beating you can come to me, and he can have a relationship with me. They have a relationship with Christ, and when they have a relationship with God, God will reveal their plan. God will reveal the purpose of marriage to this abuser, and God will reveal the purpose of marriage and maybe submission to this wife, plan and purpose. When this one have a relationship, but there has to be a separation. There has to be a separation for that to happen. Because when they're together, Christ cannot have his way in their lives. So there has to be a separation. And where that when they when but because it's temporary, when God restores back. Because he always separates to restore. It doesn't separate to just leave them hanging. That's the difference between separation and divorce. Divorce actually breaks everything. It breaks what God has joined together. It's not God didn't join it together, but when two people are together and they get married like that, there's a spiritual bond. There's a spiritual bond, and when it's a very tight bond. When it gets broken, it gets pierced, and both people are left wounded for life. And when people are wounded like that, it's very hard for them to even go to God and say, I want healing. It's very, very painful. And the Pharisees and the Sadducees were asking Jesus that they were challenging Jesus' authority, because divorce was like one of the laws that God gave to Moses, and Moses asked for when Moses received the laws. It was one of the laws that was that was existing in those days of Moses in Matthew chapter, let me see, in Matthew chapter, we're gonna find it. We're gonna find it. Okay. I'm gonna keep looking for it. So yeah, divorce is like one of those things that was temporary, and Jesus was telling the Pharisees that the only reason why Moses permitted divorce was because of the hardness of the hearts of the abuse towards the abuser. There's a lot of times when people get abused, it's very hard for them to forgive the abusers right away. Even for a long time, they have a hardness of the heart towards the abuser. Like, I want justice, I want that, and it makes sense because it's unfair for people to constantly be treated in a manner like that, to continue to be abused like that, even if it's physically or sexually. Um, but the reason why it's like that is because they are in a kingdom of darkness. Yes, it makes sense that justice needs to be served, but a lot of times it's really for it's Christ. Christ is about reformation. Christ is about reformation. Christ is about rehabilitation, rehabilitating the abuser. Renewing, and that's the same thing as the renewing of a mind, renewing of the mind of the abuser, and revealing the plan and purpose of the family system to the abuser and the abused. It pulls them both together, and it explains to them, hey guys, this married thing. This is what God designed marriage. God created the idea of marriage before the devil introduced his own abusive family system, and God wants to reveal to you what marriage is really about. Okay, so you guys are going to just listen to me while I'm renewing your mind and reforming you and changing you, so that when it looks like you understand what this is about, then you guys can get back together and start to function in love and then the devil doesn't like the idea of this separation, because he knows that when that happens, they will get transformed from this kingdom to that kingdom and start operating in love. He doesn't like the idea, so it's very easy for the abused to go to go to go about doing the things that people usually do when they have problems in their relationships. It's like when you people are when things get broken, it's very easy for us to just toss it in the trash. We don't even try to mend it. Sometimes we don't try to fix it with something. We just throw it away. You know what, we can just get another one. It's broken, we can just get a new one. So if the relationship is broken and there's a lot of disagreement, there's a lot of confusion in the married relationship, it's so easy for us to say, you know what, you know what, you can just go about your way. I don't want you anymore. I want a divorce. And then it's so easy for us to go into another relationship. Like, okay, if you don't work, if it doesn't work out with you, then we're gonna go into another relationship. We're gonna they go into another relationship because they don't even take time to say, you know what, let's see if we can mend this. Let's see if we can work this out while we're separated. I'm not saying you have to be with the abuser. You can't be with someone that is domestically abusing you and beating you every day. And when you go to the certain church system, because this family system is under the abusive church system, the only thing they would tell you, because this church system is located under the kingdom of darkness, and I'll tell you what, there's another church system that is located right here in God's kingdom. So let's not get it confused. There are a lot of churches out there, but there's some churches that work for the devil and there's some churches that work for God. If you go to this one, being that generation after generation it has been abused over abuse, definitely you'll be positioned under the kingdom of darkness. And the churches that will attract you will be this ones, and they will tell you, hey, God hates divorce. If your husband is beating you, you need to stay with your husband. That's not what God is about. You can read it for yourself in Matthew chapter 10. Christ says, yes, I did not bring to bring peace. I came to divide. It's a temporary division. It's a temporary division. And I tell you what, the abuser, because in our society today, the abuser has a very negative connotation. People hate abusers. People call men that beat their women beasts. They call them animals. They send them to jails. They have to get justice. They have to they have to get punished for laying their hands on a woman. But you have to understand that a lot of the things that happen in our physical world, there's a spiritual explanation for everything. There's a spiritual explanation for what's going on. So as they're abused, what I'm going to tell you is that you need counseling, spiritual counseling from God, not just anybody, not just anybody. Please, not just anybody. The Psalm chapter, the book of Psalms, the beginning of Psalms says, let me see, Psalms chapter 1. There are two ways. There are two ways in the world. There are two paths in the world. Happy is the man who does not follow the advice of the wicked. Now, the advice from the wicked can come from anywhere. It can come from anywhere. It can come from anywhere. Happy is the man that does not follow the advice of the wicked or take the path of sinners or join a group of mockers. It's very easy. They want to mock your husband. You want to sit around other people to mock your husband or your wife or the person that is abusing you. Instead, his delight is in the Lord's instruction. Listen, verse 2 says, instead, his delight is in the Lord's instructions, and he meditates on it day and night. He is like a tree planted beside streams of water that bears its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever it does prosper. The thing is, when it comes to issue of marriage, you're having difficulties in your marriage, you have to be very, very careful, especially it's a spiritual union. You don't want just anybody giving you advice on your marriage or your family system. Even as light in the middle of the darkness, I'm sharing my own personal experience with you. Please, it's very easy to seek counseling or seek guidance from people that, if you don't understand where the position or the differences between these kingdoms, you might actually end up being the one to destroy the family system. Well, eventually it's still going to happen anyway, because you're Christ Church. Eventually, God will still take the glory from whatever happens in your family system, because you are Christ Church and you're positioned in that environment. But I am going to give you this counsel, that it is better to take delight in the Lord's instruction and read that word day and night. So if you're going through that problem in your life, it's about time. While you're separated from your abuser, don't stay with your abuser, especially if they're domestically abusing you and they're beating you you're being given blows day and night. There has to be a separation. In the case of incest in the family system, there has to be a separation. It's temporary. You guys are still going to get back together. I want to emphasize that you guys are still going to. Everybody's still going to be. That's the reason why people have reunions. They have reunions. You guys are still going to be together, but there has to be a separation. And while that separation is going on, take delight in the Lord's instruction. Open up your Bible, flip up your Bible, study, worship God. Like that intimacy that you want with God, start to study, start it right now. You need it, because the devil is not going to stop. The devil will make sure that you guys don't get back together when the Lord separates you. When the Lord separates you, there'll be a lot of people bringing counsel to you. Oh, leave your husband. This is it. You know, you're just an animal. You're just a piece of all that stuff. The point is, God is about love. God is about restoration. There's going to be a lot of confusion, especially if you're the abused. There's going to be a lot of confusion, and there's going to be a lot of counsels, even from people that may look like they are supposed to give you counsel. But the thing is, take delight in the Lord's instructions. Take delight in the Lord's instructions. Get closer to God, because you know you're going to need God to be able to fight the battle that you're going to be fighting with the devil. And guess what? Your abuser is going to be fighting too. Your abuser is going to be fighting a really great battle with the devil, because they're very close to hell. At that point, they're very close to hell. If they can actually do something like that, like beat you, or there's all the other the abuse, there's the other abuse going on in the family, they're going to be very close to hell. You need to pray for them, because they're going to be very suicidal. They're going to be very suicidal. First, from rejection from the society. People hate men. People hate men that beat women, or women that beat men. Well, a lot of people don't talk about women beating men, but it happens. That happens, and the devil will do all kinds of things to wipe out this abuser away from the planet Earth. And because of the hardness of the heart of the abused, if you have the habit, it's very easy for the heart to be very, 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 for us to be angry, to say, you know what, it deserves to go to jail, it deserves this, it deserves that, or you need justice and all that stuff. It's very easy for that to happen. And what that will really do is it will quicken the death of this person. The thing is, even the relationship, you guys can still talk. You can still influence this person. You can still encourage them to continue to, for them to also to continue to study about God's word, for them to continue to pray while God is working on you guys separately. Don't get back together and say, you know what, prematurely you want to get back together and you guys will start it out and you guys will be okay and everything is going to, no, it's not going to happen like that. People don't change overnight. Transformation doesn't change, it doesn't happen overnight. You both have to go through a process of transformation, and it takes years. Sometimes it takes years for the wounds to heal, for this mind to be renewed, for your own wounds to be healed. It takes a process. It takes time and patience and prayer for God to bring both parties together. If we do it God's way, it's usually the best, honestly, because that's what Christ is promising us. That yes, the family system didn't start with him. There was no acknowledgement of Christ in the relationship, and the devil will continue to use the family system to procreate and create more people that would be broken, and more people that will be hurt, and a lot of people that are going through abuse. You know, that's going to happen. And what Christ is promising us is, hey, I'm here to bring love. And if that has to happen, there has to be a separation. I'm going to have to separate somehow. Especially when it places a light in the middle of darkness. Now the thing is, it has to be this church. it has to be this church, and sometimes it separates just to take its church out of the system. It separates just to take its church out of the family system. This abuse issue is a very sensitive matter, and it's a very broad topic. This is actually my first time talking about the separation part of it, because we're going to be talking about the separation part of this a whole lot. We're going to be talking about it a whole lot, because a lot of people assume that because they are light in the middle of darkness, and they understand their identity, they have to be in that relationship and cover things up especially in the case of domestic violence. You can't cover that up, because it leads to death. People die without never understanding their God's plan for their life and God's purpose for their life. And then the only thing you will hear is, well, you can't divorce if you're married because God hates divorce. Because God hates divorce. There's no need for God to divorce if the family started with God. And I'll tell you what Jesus said when he says there's no need for a divorce. If the relationship started with him, there will be no need for a divorce. There will be no need for a division. There will be no need for a division. He says in the beginning, in the beginning, God made man and woman, and God made the male and female, and He made them in His image. And when He did, let me see. Okay, yeah, the question of we're still on Matthew chapter 19, verse. Let's just go straight to verse 4. It says, "Haven't you read," he replied, "that He who created them in the beginning made them male and female? And He also said, for this man, a man will leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two will become one flesh." That's what I'm saying, that spiritual bond that I tell you, that it's a spiritual bond when people get married, when the people are joined together. And in verse 6 it says, "So they are no longer two but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, man must not separate." If God joined them together, nobody should separate them, either through divorce or anything else. If God joined them together, nobody should separate them. But if God doesn't join them together, which is what Christ was saying in verse 10, Matthew chapter 10, that if there's no acknowledgement of Christ in the relationship, then Christ is going to use his sword to divide. Because if there's no acknowledgement of Christ in that relationship, then it's founded by the devil in the kingdom of darkness. Then Christ will have to come into the picture, and there will be a division in the family system. And when that division happens, it divides so that both parties can understand what the marriage system is about. Because from generation after generation, there's been that lack of acknowledgement. But then when Christ comes into the picture and He places His light in the middle of darkness in that family system, then Christ will have to intervene, because He's going to have to separate the daughter from the narcissist's mother. He's going to have to separate the son from the narcissist's father. He's going to have to separate the daughter-in-law from the narcissist's mother-in-law. And you continue to say, and a man's enemy will be the members of his household. The evil that you're looking for is not going to be outside of your house. It's going to be in your household as the light in the church of Christ. The evil that you're looking for is not outside, it's inside, because you're in that environment. But the thing is, when Christ restores, it's very amazing how Christ restores. The thing is, the same members of your household that are your enemies, they will become your friend. As a church of Christ, they will become your friend when that restoration happens. And they have to become your friend. And the reason is because you're a light in the middle of darkness. So you can be an influencer to all the other narcissists in your world. That's your job. That's your job. So you can't minister to your enemy. You can't tell your enemy about God. No, you can't talk to God about you can't talk to your enemy about God if you don't have a relationship with them. Christ was about relationship. Christ was about building relationship with the social rejects. He spent most of his days with all those demon possessed people, casting demons. He spent his days with tax collectors. He ate and dined with prostitutes and all those people that the society rejected. He had a relationship with them. So he can present to them the kingdom of God, and he can present to them the altar of love. Because when they get to this, when they can understand their purpose by getting into this kingdom, it'll be easier for them to understand the purpose of all of the other things in their world. The purpose of the church, the purpose of the government, the purpose of the laws and authorities and all that stuff. It'll be easier for them to understand the purpose of everything in their word. And Christ is about us developing relationships with the members of our household. It's about us developing relationship with the enemies in our household, because that's our world. Yes, there's some lights in this environment. There's some lights in this environment, but they don't have an idea of how the world here functions. They don't really have a clear understanding of what we as light are supposed to be doing here. And yes, we're the same. We're the same, and we're part of the same body of Christ. But when we're functioning in the middle, as light in the middle of darkness, things works a bit different. Things are a bit different when we're positioned here. We see things a bit different because we live with these people. We eat with them. We dine with the members of our household. So when the Lord pulls us out from that environment, it gives us an identity in Him. When we have an identity in Him, we will understand how to be able to love our family members and serve our family members, regardless of their personality trait, whether they're narcissists or they're mirroring or they're gaslighting or whatever it is that they're doing. Irregardless of how they are, irregardless of their spiritual condition, whether they're lacking knowledge, whether they're broken hearted, whether they're poor in spirit, whether they're even demon possessed. When He restores us, He expects us to be able to build relationship with these ones. Because if you cannot build relationship with the members of your family that are supposed to be your enemies, then you cannot build relationship with those that He's going to be sending out into the world to influence. So our job starts with our family system. It wouldn't make sense for us to go into the church system and start to try to win souls for God, win soul for this one, win soul outside of the family system. But then the same people that are just like the people that you're trying to win over are your family system. That you live with them. We live with them we live with them. So it won't make sense for us to leave these people that we live with, that have fed us, that have provided for us, and we go out into the world trying to influence when we can influence those ones here. So when that restoration happens and we understand our identity in Christ, and we understand our own plan and we understand our own purpose, then it will be easier for us to be able to love and serve. To be able to love our Father that we've been separated from. To be able to accept those that we can't change. Our mother-in-laws. Our mother-in-laws. I was just thinking, it was so funny when I was out there, when I was separated from my family system, what the devil was telling me. The devil was telling me, hey, you know what? You can't go back to your mother. When the Lord was trying to do His restoration, there was like, you can't go back to your mother. Your mother is a witch. You can't go back to your mother. Your mother is demon possessed, or your father is this. Your father is demon possessed. Your family members are this. Your family members are that. Why would you want to go back to your family system? Like, you're supposed to be with all these people, right? All these people that look like you and act like you, and they're all saved. The saved gang, saved people's gang. You're supposed to be with all these people, And I'm like, no, actually, no. I want to be back in my family, and love my family. The same, they're dysfunctional, but it's okay. I want to love the dysfunctional part of my family. It's alright if they're dysfunctional. I want to love them. But the thing is, it was not easy for me to make that decision to say, you know what, yeah, I want to love the dysfunctional part of my narcissist family system. It was not easy for me to make that decision. But the thing is, it's so funny what Christ said. Christ said, hey, if the devil told you that your mother is a witch, yeah, well, tell the devil I died for witches too. If the devil tells you your father is a demon possessed person, tell the devil that I casted a lot of demons when I was on earth. Have you read the book of Matthew? Yeah, most of the things I did was I was just casting demons left and right. So it's okay for you to go back to demon possessed people because I died for them too. That was what Christ said too. That's what Christ said. So people will say, oh, you know what? You know, there are witches everywhere. All the when you go to the church systems that are in under the kingdom of darkness, they'll tell you, hey, you know what? You need to cast all the members of your family, all the family members that are demons. You need to start casting them. All the family members that are tying your destiny down. You need to start casting and binding them. A funny thing is, wait. So let's pretend that okay, all your family members are demon possessed and all your family members are witches and all of them are like, you know, they have some type of bad spirit. Let's just assume that that's the way it is, and you leave your family system, right? You leave your family system, and you live on your own. You start living on your own, right? Well, when you get married, you never know. Yes, your husband may be a godly husband. Your husband may be a light, and you know you guys get along together. You're like, yes, let's do God's work together. And then you meet your husband's mother or your husband's father, and you're like, oh, this woman has some type of spirit that looks like the that looks like the one you ran away from, the one you casted and bind, you know, like that's why he say that's why he say it. That's why I say there might have to be a separation between the daughter-in-law and the mother-in-law. Because yes, a lot of times we try to bypass all this. You don't want to deal with the members of your family. You want to run away from the members of your family. That they tell you over here to cast and bind. When you get married, you can get married to a godly man, but there's no guarantee that his mother or father may not have the same spirit as this. So it doesn't make any sense to cast and bind people. Just cast and bind people. A lot of times we don't have to even cast and bind. A lot of times we just have to love and serve. We have to love and serve and win them over because they're not. There might be a spirit there, but because we live in a fallen world and we live in a broken system, it's very natural for that to happen. It's very natural for us to see people that are demon possessed and all that stuff. Like you can, when you have a relationship with God and you have your identity and you understand who you are, you can sleep with the demon possessed person. There's nothing's going to happen to you. You know, like I'm not saying like have sex. Some people actually do it. Some people actually do that. But I'm actually saying you can actually be on the same bed with a demon possessed person. You can eat with a witch. You can bait with a mami water. You can. I mean, like you have. It's just a matter of loving and serving. That's what I really want to emphasize. That a lot of the things that we do, you know, a lot of casting and binding and going into prayer warrior, prayer warring section, and and fasting for 100 days and 100 nights, you know, and doing all the spiritual warfares to cast and bind people for 48 hours or 3 days is irrelevant. It's unnecessary because Christ died for all those people too. And what he did with a lot of them was he had relationships with them. He had a relationship with them. Yes, it did. It did at a point. he did casted some demons, but he didn't have to pray for 48 hours. He just said the word. He said he would tell the demon leave, and the demon will leave, because his faith was that much. And he's promising us that if we have a little faith as small as a mustard seed, hey, you can just tell the demon to leave, and the demon will leave, because you have that power, because you have that authority. The devil's already under your feet as the church of Christ. So it doesn't make sense to cast and bind every members of our family, because after the restoration takes place, they're supposed to be our friends. They're supposed to be our friends, so we can go out in the world and minister to other people that look like the members of our family. That's the purpose. That's our purpose as the church. Yes, this topic today is a bit like, I think I was just pretty much going over. I hope I covered it. I hope I covered a few things that I really wanted to share out there. But when it comes to domestic violence, please, you need to separate from your abuser. And it will be very helpful for you to get yourself some really amazing support systems. Don't push people away. A lot of times we don't want people to get into our business and come and try to know what's going on in our lives. But as they're abused, you're going to need a lot of support systems. Even the abuser is also going to need his or our own support system while they're going through what they're going through. And that's what I really want to say on this topic. Seek God's guidance and take delight in God's word. Take delight in God's word. Stay blessed and love you guys.